Let's discuss your graphic design hot takes. Hi, my name is Ram Overset Text and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be discussing your hot takes. I asked my Instagram and my Instagram broadcast channel. For this video, we're going to do the second hot take first, and then we're going to go through all the mildly to medium spicy takes, and then at the very end, I'm going to tell the hottest take. So you would want to watch till the end. That's how YouTube works. This is called engagement. But before we start, I want to plug my Patreon because this whole operation is supported by viewers like you, and you get these little tiny posters, stickers if you sign up. What if I made like Overset Text pimple patches? Wouldn't that be cool if you just put this entire poster on your face? I'm like, why do you have that on your face? Anyway, sign up for the Patreon on patreon.com/oversettext. Anyways, let's get on with the takes. Let's get on with the first take. Here's the first take, which is actually a few people said the same take, so I'll be grouping several messages into one take. But the first one is slapping your poster with a threshold effect and adding halftone pattern is whack. Putting a texture overlay is a cop-out. Print and scan like we did in the old days. As somebody who loves to use paper textures, I'm guilty. I love to put a paper texture on that shit. I love to put threshold and halftone. Do I think it's overused? A little bit. Will I still be doing it? Yes. And you might hear this take and you'll probably feel attacked. And that's fine, you know. A bunch of these takes will attack you. But we need to really step outside ourselves and let's unpack this together. I do agree that some designs will not need the threshold halftone effect. I guess this talks about effects in general. Because usually when I do my work, I usually do try to get the design to work without the effects, but there is something to the threshold and halftone pattern that just like really seasons it all together. And I think that's what it is. It's like seasoning to taste. You know, it's like salt. I feel like a paper texture, a halftone, you know, those effects, they're good if they are just there to add some flavor, some zhuzh. It cannot be the main things. Is it a cop-out? Have I made designs that look kind of dumb, but then I put the texture on there and it looks kind of good? Yes, I have done that. Guilty. But I do think it's good to ask yourself, does it need these effects? Because I've made some designs where I put the paper texture and like all that stuff, and I'm like, I don't think it needs that. And maybe I've been conditioned myself to just put it on top of it and say, call it a day. I think it's a matter of taste and a restraint. You should never overpower the design. You should be able to look at a design and don't even notice that the effects are there. I think that's when it shines the best. Sometimes people use threshold because it makes printing easier. There's also some practical reasons why threshold is so popular. And there are a few ways of using threshold effects. And I think people are just getting sick of the same like stock threshold on Photoshop. But not to say that you cannot make those look good. You can. But again, it's like to taste. And does it work with the design? Does it work well? But it should never be the focus of the design is that you figured out threshold. Although, you know, you want to be figuring things out. Everyone has their own journey on when they're using these effects. You will get to a point where you're like using it and then you're like, actually, I don't want it anymore. And actually, I kind of like it. And you get to a happy medium. I still think it's good. I am not sick of it yet. Maybe, have we reached peak threshold? I think we reached it a few years ago, but I don't know. I think we could still do it. Maybe I'm the culprit of this. Before we get to the next take, actually, do you guys like my hat? I got it from my favorite band of all time, Wet. Probably album of the year. Anyways, yeah, I've never really worn hats before, but I think I'm becoming a hat guy, guys. Let me know if you guys like my new hat era. Anyways, let's go read the next take. Wearing a cap 100% of the time is my design content red flag. Yeah, hats are whack, and if you wear a hat in a graphic design video, that's a red flag. Don't wear those. I would never wear one. Let's go on. Let's move on to the next one. Design isn't respected as a skill anymore. It's ironically been rebranded as content. I think that's the case for every job right now, that you have to make content. It just feels weird to have to do that as a designer. And although I am admittedly, I don't want to be a designer anymore. I want to be a design content creator. I embrace that title completely. I'm not here to design anymore. I do design my own personal stuff, but as a working designer, I feel like it is weird that you have to be on social media making content, because that kind of takes away from actually doing the design. Elizabeth Goodspeed actually wrote about this in one of her articles about how designers now have to perform online.
The audience isn't just seeing what gets made, but who's making it and how. Some of the bigger designer-cum influencers are still taking client projects, but many don't need to. They've already monetized their audience directly through Patreon, Substacks, monthly print subscriptions, and bespoke templates.
There's some content creators out there that are talking like they know design when they just make content, which includes me, by the way. I felt attacked, not attacked, I shouldn't say attacked by that article. I'm like, I could fit into this. It does fit me.
Wait, is this play about us?
You know, I am very open about saying that I'm a self-taught designer. I just have opinions on design, and I try to read up on it. I try to do my homework. I try to do my due diligence. That actually has kind of stopped me from making more content, because I have been in a hole, guys, of research and writing, because I am kind of a bit anxious about putting out something that is subpar or could be not well researched. So this is why I'm kind of doing this, because I need to like a little bit of a, like, you know what? Let's just say some things that I don't care. Let's be a little reckless and do some hot takes that will gain engagement, so I could get a little bit of dopamine. See, but you see, there's this system of like the content game, and then, but it's the only time for, if you're a serious designer, it is the only time for you to get exposure. Follower counts does not reflect the skill of a designer, and I fully 100% agree with that. Just because somebody has a lot of followers doesn't really mean that they know how to design or know the ins and outs of the design world or working with clients. Some people just make good content, and that's fine. That's good. You know, you shouldn't believe everything you hear on the internet. You shouldn't believe. Which is weird that a lot of people are just taking a lot of these design content creators' word as gospel. You should be able to question me. I am not above criticism, and no one else should be. Like, we need critical thinking back a little bit. There's a bunch of other factors of why design feels watered down now. First of all, the term design is so vast. There's so many different design disciplines that you cannot really encapsulate it all. So it's all kind of just like a blur. And especially online is already a blur, and then you're competing with pretty much every type of content on there. It's just a lot. So that's the state of affairs of design, being a designer online. It's kind of a mess, but I honestly think that if you have a low follower count, like I'm saying 50K less, honestly, I think you have a better like position as a serious designer. You never want to get too big if you want to be a real serious designer, because the best designers that I know who work with like really big names, they do not have a lot of followers. So if you think you need followers to work in the design industry, you don't. You just need to create work that you love, create work that you need, that you want to work on, and then the people will find you. You need to make genuine connections. Because there's this guy, I don't know how to say his Instagram handle, but it's SVBIH, at Sevi Mahmood. I've never said his name out loud, so if you're watching this and I butchered it, I'm sorry, dude. But he's been a long time follower. We've been mutuals for a long time. I remember in 2021, and he's worked with like big names like Pink Panthers, and I'm low-key jealous. So you don't need a lot of followers to work in the design industry. You just need to make cool work, and people will find you. Everyone loves to hate on centered text, but I think it's underrated. 100% agree. I think centered text is so good and goated, and I don't care what other people think. You know, actually, I hate the design rule. It needs to be left aligned ragged, and so people could read it. No, it doesn't. The majority of people could read center text just fine. They always say like, it's actually hard to read because you have to like jump to the top. I'm like, no, bro, that's just a skill issue, honestly. I could probably make a whole, like, there's a time and place for center text, right? Like, I wouldn't use it for like large body of text, like a book maybe. But why not? You know, I'll make my own book all fully in center text, and I bet you it would be kind of annoying to read, not gonna lie. The golden ratio is design astrology. I 100% agree. It's kind of like grids. I don't think grids are real. People keep saying like, ooh, use a grid and you will unlock the secrets of design. I don't think that's real. Like, people be using grids. I'm like, do you actually use the grid? Like, I think it's more just suggestion. Like, okay, I have a hot take that I just want to add into this. This book, if a designer has this book, this is a red flag. Like, my hot take is no one has ever read this book fully. Like, nobody knows what any of this shit means. Like, I know for a fact, if you own this book, you've said to yourself, what am I reading? I don't know what this means. I really don't. Half of this is gibberish to me. Design rules are just things that got copied so frequently that it became the rule. Yes, that is true, because a lot of these rules were made up, like literally not even like 100 years ago. Like, it's less than 100 years. They were all made in Europe, like the Bauhaus. All these rules that we made were made up by white people. I'm Voltroning a lot of these takes because my audience is smart. My audience is, they're kind of smart. And if you are a fan of overset text, you're a fan of thinking. And silly bullshit. But Made by Gomez said, we need to strip away all colonial Western design ideals. Our societies aren't majority white anymore, so our designs should reflect that. And I agree with that. As like, you know, as we live in a connected world, I think a lot of the Western design ideals have been put in place because that is the proper way to design, and that is the only way to design. And even when we're breaking the rules, it's always some white person breaking the rules. We're barely, getting different perspectives. I think it's just kind of like the problem with it, is that we don't get exposed to a lot of different designs, like even from like different languages. Like, the letters that we use aren't the only letters that people use in the world. Like, we have, Japanese script, Arabic script, which actually leads to my next take that I want to discuss. By my mutual Samia has this to say. Very few English American designs stand out in a sea of Arabic/Urdu designs and typography, but because we haven't fetishized the people, we don't see it as something worthy. And that is a very spicy take. And I 100% agree with this take, because the whole part of like the fetishization of certain, exotic peoples that are outside of the United States, once they've been fetishized, then now it's normal to like use those designs. And that's why I think people are more accepting of Japanese design. Not to say that there isn't good Japanese design, but it is more acceptable because it doesn't hold all the historical and cultural baggage of, let's say, the Arabic script, because obviously there's a lot of Islamophobia happening right now. So people are just kind of like, for the average person, and even like people who are into design, will never be exposed to that, because there's just like this wall of American propaganda that you cannot penetrate sometimes, and it's just like implicit bias. We all have a bias like that, and I think just admitting that we do have that might be hard for you. And I will admit that I'm not very familiar with a lot of like Arabic or Urdu designs. That's why I asked Samia if she would like to show us some, and she actually has a voice memo that I would like to play and to give her perspective on it.
Historically, like, Arabic has had to rely on as little imagery as possible, because in Islam and when the Quran came about, one of the rules was that you can't have any representational imagery. So you can't make faces, you can't make animals. So people had to rely on geometry, and that's where Islamic art came from. And if not geometry and that kind of symbolism, then it had to be like really, really heavy on text. And that's when people started playing around with the text, and it went into like this really, really fluid script. But then there's also this one form of Arabic script called Arabic/Urdu/Persian script called a Kufic script, which relies entirely on small square grids. And it's been able to adapt to all kinds of design languages, all because of like the lack of representational imagery. And I feel like that's why the script itself was able to be experimented with so much more. And I'm trying to like humanize why Japanese slash American, European, whatever, Latin scripts are like so much more quote unquote attractive or pleasing to the eye, to the mainstream. And I'm trying to wonder if it's because of the direction of the script that sort of makes you think that this is what a composition should be like, because English goes from left to right, whereas Arabic goes from right to left. So maybe like the difference can be jarring for some people, and they're like, actually, this composition is a bit messy than what I'm used to.
Regarding that last part, I do think that it's different for like, you know, Western audience, English speaking, English reading audiences to accept like Arabic because it's like from right to left. I honestly don't buy it because Japanese people love Japanese designs, and that's totally different characters, and I truly think it's just white supremacy. It's just racism. It's just Islamophobia. It's just all these forces that are working against that. And you know, I think, you know, if we're talking about like complete typography, like super typography, like just, you know, like Samia said, you cannot have any representation of Allah in Islam. So they just had to use beautiful typography, and like, that's the most graphic design system ever. So I think, you know, I want to see more, and I hope more people are open to this, and more of these designs get the recognition that they deserve. All right, next take. I'm gonna put two takes against each other because I think it's a very interesting dichotomy of takes. Too many designers forget that design is a communication tool. Important info is so microscopic. If I cannot easily comprehend your design, you have failed to make it accessible. Versus, stretch that text, baddie, type rules aren't real. And, you know, like we just talked about how design rules aren't real, right? And then also the idea of accessibility. Those are two things that I think both of us agree are good. We want to be able to stretch type and do whatever we want in designs. But we also want design to be accessible and legible. Those might seem contradictory, and holding those two ideas seems like I'm a hypocrite. But I do think this goes back to what I said about how these design rules are just applied to everything that it doesn't need to be applied to. Like, you're forcing all these design rules on things that could be a little bit more fun, that doesn't need that rigidity of design rules. Like, of course I want things to be accessible. Like, if we're making signs, if we're making, you know, things for the public good, for the public safety, like for example, you know, street signs, you know, highway signs, transit system signs, of course those need to be accessible, of course. But for things like, you know, for like t-shirt design, like, you know, those heavy metal logos that are not legible, those don't need to be legible. They're not meant to be legible. And I think we need to be a little bit, use our brains a little bit when we talk about these things, because we don't need to force all these design rules on everything. 99% of us don't even make life-threatening, life-changing designs. Like, if I put this pixel, just 2 pixels to the left or right, it's not gonna like kill somebody. I'm not working on any of that. I bet you've never worked on anything like that, and we don't need to make it like, oh, like this, just if this isn't legible, like it's gonna cause so many problems. Like, yeah, maybe if you're working for the government, if you're working on like the highway system, like of course you need that rigidity of that, and that's when those rules of design should apply. I think we need to start thinking that design is more of a language. It's not a science. I don't like it when we just treat it like hard science. It's like math. Like, it's not math or science. It's more of a language, honestly. Like, if I'm somebody who needs to give directions, I'm gonna be clear and concise with what I say. And that's probably the appropriate time to do that. But if I'm just hanging out, or just like I'm in a casual setting, I'm not gonna be talking like all robotic and proper. And maybe I would, but I could be a little bit more loose with how I talk. That's what I mean. You know, like, let's not be obtuse when we do this, and not force all these rigid rules onto each other. Chill out. Like, this is not the Bible, bro. This is like, put this book down and chill the fuck out. Anyways, I think we're ready for the hottest take. I think these are pretty all hot already, but I have a take that I'm kind of scared to say, because there was a lot of Adobe Canva takes. Like, oh, Canva is good, Adobe sucks, blah, 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 blah. This is the most liked take in my broadcast channel. I hate Adobe, and it's morally correct to pirate Adobe. I think piracy is bad. Don't do it. Do not do it. Okay. And I'm here talking in a very theoretical fashion. But theoretically, in a video game, Adobe is the industry standard, right? And if you do that, you are still using Adobe software. And then it's fine, especially if you're a freelancer, it's fine, right? But then once you get like a corporate job or like a job that involves, you know, like being in a team or whatever, and then I don't think they would do that as a legal entity. They would want to do it properly, right? So you're still stuck learning the tools of what you want to get rid of. And I honestly think it just perpetuates the system. You know, they know that you do that, right? Like, I've talked to Adobe engineers because you know what, maybe this is the worst coming from me as an Adobe shill, as somebody who's worked with Adobe. Supposed to say this? Is this under NDA? I don't know. Maybe I'll get in trouble saying this, but they know that you do that. They're not stupid. They're not stupid. They know that. But that actually perpetuates their power and foothold in the industry, because once you get a big boy job, it's kind of like the same thing they do with students, is that they get you hooked on it. And then once you get into the real world, you have to use it because that is the industry standard. And it's just a cycle. It's just a cycle. The only thing we have hope in is not even Canva, because Canva has also questionable, they have questionable partnerships, and they're a very for-profit company. All these companies are for-profit, and really the only way is we need to invest in open source software. And a lot of the open source software that we have that are available, they're not funded well, and they do not have the same capabilities as Adobe. And I don't even know if we can get there, but I think that is our really only hope. And you know, like DaVinci Resolve, like that's the only time I've seen like Adobe lose a foothold in like one of their programs, is because they just made something that was like better. Is Resolve, is it open source? Like, I'm truly not trying to be a downer here, because I truly want a solution where we have tools that are affordable or free, hopefully free, but it's just kind of hard to do that. Like, the only example I can think of is Blender. I just checked, Resolve is not open source, and I have a feeling that it might be corrupted at some point one day. The only thing I could really think of is open source software like Blender. Like, I think that's the best example of it. I'm thinking from it from like a mass movement, right? Like, cause like a lot of people are not going to be able to move away from Adobe because of, like I said, this industry foothold that they have, and people need to work a job. And if they are forced to use those tools, then they cannot move away from it. So it makes it hard for companies. Like I said, like if we all boycott it, like if we all stop using Adobe, I don't think it will even make a dent because of all their corporate and business accounts. And I'm just thinking about like, okay, how do we really create an alternative that works and that will pretty much convince these companies to use this other free open source software. But again, in the system that we're in, it seems unlikely. But again, you do what you got to do. I just am trying to think of a way to actually affect change in this part of our industry, right? But yeah, I don't know if this is gonna get me into trouble with Adobe, or I am not. I would like to make it clear, I think pirating is bad and you shouldn't do it. That's my stance. I just literally said it will not, don't do it because it won't help, but also how do we make an alternative that actually would help us move away from that? I just wanted to say it, guys. I just wanted to say I have this opinion. This is a take that I wanted to say, and I'm tired of holding it in, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna say it. And you know what? Whatever. Yeah, use whatever you need. Get it through however you need, but I truly think the alternative, the real thing that will break us free from this curse, is creating a open source software, kind of like Blender. And we need people to actually like to use it. Kind of like Blender, but like GIMP, dude, GIMP is not even a solution because GIMP barely got like layers like two years ago or some shit. And I'm gonna be real, I don't want to move away from it. I need something that's just one for one for it. I need some like Photoshop engineers to defect and create some alternative, you know, I need it. Anyways, that is my hot take that I would like to leave you with. What do you think of that? And if you're from Adobe, that was just a joke. But yeah, that's my take. I don't know if I'm gonna get in trouble with that last take. but that's what I want to say. I want to be a little rascal. Nobody watches the YouTube channel anyways. It's fine. Nobody watches to the very end. So, and if it so happened that you watched to the very end, I love you. Shout out to my Patreon subscribers, Tehu and Juliana Collado, and Fish Tacos. You guys are the best. They are my day ones, guys. Also, shout out to Kathy Pham, doing the little voiceover. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also follow her on Instagram. It's in the bio. It's in the link down there. Yeah, that's the video. Let me know what else you want, and bye-bye.